discussing a few different things. Of course, the elephant in the room is probably going to be this guy right there, the Huntsman, being made by yours truly right over there. And so, Jacob, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jacob with Very Good Knife Company. I've been making knives full-time since 2010. I've made a whole bunch of knives and spent a lifetime in the woods playing with them. I really have enjoyed making this Huntsman run. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
So were you kind of like a knife nerd junkie before you got into making knives, or you just kind of decided I'm going to start making knives and go from there?
Knife nerd junkies were a whole lot different in 2010.
Yeah, I was I was
We
kind
didn't
of getting
color.
into knives at that point. That was kind of about when I was still in the like sword stage and kind of going to knives.
Yeah.
I was a sword nerd for a long time, so um, there was one point in time I had like a whole room just dedicated to swords and stuff, which is
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
yeah.
It really is.
Maybe that's what we need to get you to do: make a huntsman sword,
Oh,
right?
I despise making swords, man. I've done it. I've done a few. I've done a lot of machetes and really big knives,
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know, man. They're just a pain.
I always joke with Alan with Primitive Bear Knives. I'm not sure if you guys have ever talked, but
He doesn't like
uh,
doing big knives either.
no, he doesn't. And I always joke about how one day he's gonna make me a Magna Cut sword at like 57 HRC or something like that. Just kind of oh, getting his goat. And so we got a few guys coming in. Tim School of Fish. Hey guys, be sure to check out his knife, the Snook. And that's a pretty awesome thing with a Blackwall our knife company. And then okay, just a second.
What else we got? It's like we got a troll.
Yeah, I'm gonna
A little bridge troll.
actually there. That's the easy way to deal with
What's
that.
up, Freddy?
Yeah, he I do not tolerate gayness on this channel at all. So if you
Nothing, Joe. Nothing wrong with swords. I
no, we
promise.
like swords. I just
Yeah,
I was kind of
it's just
talking.
I was just saying it's a whole thing. Like you can't just have one.
No,
Everybody I know that's into swords has literally got a room.
yeah, I was big into swords, and I even kind of got into like competing with them for a little bit, and then
Ain't no shame.
yeah,
Yeah,
kind
no.
of then kind of got into different hobbies, and real life happened, and
Yeah,
went from there. Knives
yeah.
are easier
I hear
to
you.
play with, and
Yeah, and
super
I wasn't ever really a knife nerd. I mean, I always had a knife as a kid. My dad just was religious about his knife in his pocket, so
mm-hmm.
I always had one. And I would love to. I would have loved to have had my older three, carrying a knife sooner. But given that there's a whole bunch of them, so I can't really do that. But I was all by myself, just me and my dad, and I always carried a knife. And he was really, really big into case knives, like top tier collector level, a damn Shiloh case. And
Nice.
we did gun shows a whole bunch selling case knives, and so
Yeah,
that kind of kicked it off.
I for a long time just carried like a basic Kershaw or something, and then I had a Benchmade that I later got pissed off and destroyed it when I realized they were communist and gay, and so I took it out with a sledgehammer and ensured
Made
that
you feel
nobody,
better.
yeah, and nobody would ever enjoy that Benchmade ever again. So I just left it out in the
That
dirt too.
that
I was
was
just
you have it. I don't even care anymore. Yeah,
yeah.
I used to carry a good bit of Kershaws. I lost a couple. I lost quite a bit. I lost every Kershaw I ever carried. I just something about Kershaws. I just lost them.
Yeah, I went through just like a lot of beer folders, and then I got into fixed blades, and since I got into fixed blades, I just never really appreciated folders the same. I still carry a folder on me, but I always carry a fixed blade on me as well.
No way, man. A big old folder, something this size is going to take up as much room in my pocket as something this size. And, that's what's in the pocket. The rest is out of the pocket. As far as I'm concerned, that's the same size, the sheath with the ulti-clip. I mean, it's essentially the same, even though this sticks out.
Tom Sullivan asked, got here late, but since you guys are talking about knives, what would you recommend for work use? I mean, there's a lot of variables there. It kind of honestly depends. This guy right there, the Adventure, I think, is kind of the flagship knife that I've become quite a fanboy of. The Adventure. I would say, if you're in a average environment, the ADCR V2 would probably do you just fine. But if you're in a higher humid environment, I might look into the Nitro V version of it.
Yep, I've been carrying the Nitro V Adventure since June, and it gets used a lot. I mean, a lot. I've got a little tiny nick in the edge right up at the tip because I do dumb stuff with mine. I respect them, but I really, I don't know. When you have the deep in the back of your mind, I can just make another one.
Yeah.
Then, I just
you don't care.
I don't hold back. I just don't. I do all the stupid stuff that I don't advise other people do because I want to know. I just want to know. If I break it, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to go right back to the shop. I'm going to make another one.
And you also, from what I've looked into, have a really good warranty on your knives as well. So, don't hold back.
As long as you don't, if you don't do anything dumb with it, I mean, deliberately dumb,
Yeah. Sometimes you can't weed that out either.
You really can't. I have a lot of people that I've sold knives to locally. I hardly ever see anybody, but sometimes I'll see some linemen. They'll come bring me their knife. They're like, "Can I send it to you? Where are you at?" Just like 20, 30 minutes up the road. Why don't you just come by the house? I'll have it done before you even get back in your truck. I'll have it brand new, but they'll bring me stuff and them boys are a little mean to their stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen... I can't say nothing, man. I do the same thing. So I like to invest in my customers, It doesn't cost me a dime to be kind and just give them 5 minutes of my time to make it brand new again.
Well, kindness goes a long ways for
sure.
Yeah. So the Huntsman, it's coming out this Friday, August 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes, indeed.
How been to work on?
They have been a pain in the ass. They're a pain in the ass. They're a big pain in the ass. But they're really fun at the same time. It's just a lot of grinding, It's a lot of grinding.
Well, with that high saber grind,
it's a lot of grinding.
A 6.5-inch blade with a 2-inch wide blade at the widest point like that.
Yeah. See, the walkabout gets the pretty much identical grind, but it doesn't have that big giant belly on it.
Yeah, I got a walkabout right there. I haven't got much use on this one yet. I've been wanting to, but I've been kind of trying to hyper focus on this guy a lot lately. That
play with it.
Yeah, I definitely plan on coming to the walkabout eventually after this drops. And
it's a good one. It's not a chopper. It's a little handle heavy. I mean, it balances out pretty nice, but it's just not a chopper. It doesn't chop like the Huntsman, man.
No, this reminds me of like a great just camp knife kind of belt.
That's
camp
what it was
knife type of
pretty
thing.
much designed for.
I really like it though, but and then so Friday, you said we could be expecting what, 20 of these to be dropping on Friday?
Yeah, 20.
20. All right.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I'll have 6 6 green, 6 black, and then 8 in that.
Natural.
I just did, 8 in that. Yep.
Yeah.
That's just what I have the abundance of in my Carta. These things take up a massive chunk of my Carta.
I bet they do.
The handles do.
Well,
Yeah.
the handle is not only long, but it's pretty
It's
wide.
2 inches wide. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
definitely created quite the endeavor for you to have to
Yep.
do here for sure.
Yep. After having done a few of them, I kind of got what little things I can cut out here and there. I usually try to avoid big bird beaks and the big guards, because like the only other knife that I have with that kind of big old guard is the First Strike,
Yeah,
and it's just a pain to do all that extra. But it doesn't have that big bird's beak, and it's not really made for the chop. But that bird's beak is imperative for chopping. You got to be able to choke back and get a little hinge action going on there.
yeah. Well, I feel like this handle, the way I kind of designed it and was thinking, is I could kind of get a grip up here. I could kind of choke back here, and I
Yeah.
can really kind of choke back. And I like to just kind of put
Yep.
my pinky like right back
Yep.
there and just kind of really let the
Same.
blade do a lot of
Yep.
work. Um,
That's how I was holding it when I sent you that video chopping with that one that you've got there. That's all
yeah,
I did. That's the only bit of playing that I did with that knife before I sent it
yeah.
out.
I've
And
been I've had to clean this knife up a few times because it was getting pretty stained pretty bad, and I was like, I don't know if I want it to be that stained and to show it off, but it's still pretty scuffed up and everything. But it adds a
shit a
lot of
buff.
character for sure.
Absolutely. The more you use it, more sap and hand oils and shit you get on it, it'll eventually just stay gray. And
Yeah, I thought about even just bluing it or something too.
you can
Maybe.
blue it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
used to do a lot of bluing. I don't know if you watched that table full of knives video that I did,
I
but
feel like I did, but I can't quite totally remember honestly.
this is blued ADCRV2.
Nice.
Yeah, I did a whole bunch of the original Bloodline stuff was all blued, and it it works better than no coating, but
Hmm.
it at the same time, like if it gets saturated wet, it's really hard to keep from rusting.
Yeah.
Something about the bluing. Yeah, mustard patina works.
Yeah, I've done
Mustard
the
patina.
mustard patina on one of my K-Bar Becker knives. I think it was my Becker BK9 I did too. And I'm always like modifying knives, so I'll like polish a Becker up or something
Yeah.
and get bored with it, and then decide I'm gonna patina it, and then later like, oh, I got some spare Duracoat. I'm just gonna Duracoat it again.
Yep. Hell with it.
When I
Yep.
just Duracoated it a year ago, and so.
Yep. Yeah, I did the bluing for a good while, and I don't know. I just wanted them black. I didn't want them shiny,
Yeah.
like all the very good stuff is. Which, in truth, that the more dull of a finish that you go with, like a carbon steel, the higher chance it has to rust. Just you can't get it dry when it's got microsurface scratches. And so that's why I like to finish mine at 400 grit. Just specifically, that is where I've found is if you finish ADCRV2 or 1095 to anything rougher than that, if it's not coated, it's gonna rust when you breathe on it.
Yeah. I know with my Becker BK7, I haven't hardly had any, rusting issues with it, but I polished it to like 1200 and like it's mirror polished on this Becker BK7 and I don't have any rusting issues with
No,
that.
no, because I mean the less you take away for adhesion on the surface, I mean nothing's gonna stick. If you can get it to a point where water will bead off of it, which is a satin 400 grit finish, water will
Mhm.
bead off of it, and it just rusts less. I was trying to sand like media blast the ADCRV2, and all with all the bluing. If you blast them first, then they turn out that dark gray black. But if you leave them shiny, then they get that bluish color.
Yeah.
You know, So I was just blasting them before. And if you left them uncoated, like without bluing after blasting, I mean, if you put your finger on it, it'll rust where your finger was within 24 hours. It's rusty.
Well, and you're down in Georgia too, so you got
It's
kind of a totally
humid.
different level of humidity
Yep.
than what I have up here in Missouri in the
Yep.
North Woods type of thing.
Yep.
I just totally lost train of thought of where I was going. Um, oh, I remember. So I had a TRC South Pole, and that was an LMAX. And one of the things that really surprised me was that LMAX and that apocalyptic finish that TRC has. That was like really prone to rusting, and I was like, man, that's LMAX. That shouldn't be rusting like that. But I think there's something about that apocalyptic finish that it just didn't.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because
Maybe.
it. I know there was one time I was did something on a raft or something like that and got it just a little bit wet and didn't really care because I was like, oh, it's LMAX, it should be fine. And pulled it out and it was just completely rusted. I was like,
that's great.
It's sad to see a $350 knife.
Oh yeah,
rusted like
absolutely. That. Yeah, when I do like the specials with the fat carbon and stuff, I usually only do that on Nitro V because I go into it with the mindset of if I spend a little extra on something and I want it to be pretty like that, I don't want it to start rusting. I don't want to have to take the rust eraser to a really nice fine blade with fat carbon handles and so I just do them all on Nitro V. I don't want them to rust up on somebody. I think it just adds to that. I don't have to take care of it so much value.
Yeah. I've been really looking forward to trying your Nitro V. Actually, I know you kind of got that Adventure Junior for me in the works, and,
Yep.
and so I'm eager to try that. And then I'm also eager. I don't know if we should just go ahead and show it off or not, but well, I'll show you guys my doodle here. So I like the Adventure quite a bit. And so I doodled up a kind of Warncliffe sax kind of style knife with an Adventure handle on it. And so we've been kind of contemplating on getting one of these going. And I actually think it would be kind of cool. And I thought of the name for it was the Hawk, since you kind of already got one that's a Warncliffe, that's a Falcon. Yep. I was like, well, this is a little bigger than the Falcon, and a Hawk is actually a little bigger than a Falcon is too.
So. Yep, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a cool one. I was just gonna make you a blade, and you sent me that. It was like 10:30 at night, and I just forgot about it the next morning. And about midday, I was like, "Oh, I gotta text him back." No, I'm just gonna make him a blade and just show it to him. and it just didn't work out. I just was so swamped the rest of the day, and the next day I was like, "Oh my god!" I got to text him.
Yeah, you got a lot going on. I kind of launched a tall order on you, and you got
those have had me tied up.
Yeah,
for sure.
Those, and then of course your normal stuff, and then the Blackwater Knife Co. stuff too.
Yep.
And so a lot of stuff going on at Very Good Knife Company.
Yep, for sure.
So maybe one day you need to hire somebody to be a sidekick down there, right?
I do. I have got to build a shop. I'm ready to build a shop. My shop, I've outgrown myself in my shop, and I get to the point where when I have 20 of those Huntsman blades on the bench and they fill up the entire damn bench because they're all huge. I mean, I've got them stacked as close together as I can, and they just take up so much of the bench.
Yeah.
And all my shop is so cramped for space already that I just move things from one bench to another when I need to use this bench. I just moved stuff. But then when I get a big old stack of knives, I'm like,
to get to it later.
Yep, I got a big stack of knives on there, and I'm like, oh my god, I need another table. There's nowhere to even put another. There's not even enough room for the tables that are in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of
So
know all about the limited space type of thing. I went from a small house to myself, and now I have a small house with wife and kids and everything
yep,
like that going. So
yep. I hear you. I understand. There's 6 of us crammed in this house.
yeah, we got number two on the way.
Number
So
2 on the way. Congrats.
yeah,
How was
yeah.
your weekend?
It was really good. It was really good. We went down to Springfield, Missouri. I grew up down in Springfield a lot, so
Gotcha.
I kind of bounced around up here on the farm, and then I lived in Springfield quite a bit. And then there was one point in my life where I kind of got offered, "Hey, do you want to inherit the farm? You got to live up here." And it's like I'm
Check.
kind of hard to say no to a farm, so
Yep. Check. See ya. I'm out of
yeah,
here.
deuces
Yep.
and now I live up here. It's hard for me to even want to go back to the city anymore. I'll
Oh, hell yeah.
sometimes go down there, and it's just like in 5 minutes, I'm ready to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I grew up about 2 hours north of Atlanta.
Yeah,
That's where I'm at. I was born in San Diego, California, and I don't usually like to admit that to too many people, but my parents moved me out here when I was 6 months old, so I'm not a Californian. I'm a Georgian.
yeah. I got
But,
a old class. Tony Z says cool flag. I got a Betsy Ross flag back behind me.
oh, I see it. Yep.
It's an actual stitched one too. So I was riding
That's
around
cool.
town a lot with that when all the COVID crap was going on, and I was being rebellious and telling everybody to
I hear you.
stop being giga gay. And
Yeah.
so
Yep. We are. Oh man, that's too damn touchy.
yeah, that's a totally different topic.
Yeah, that's too damn touchy.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Georgia, my wife actually has some land down in Georgia. She has like 30 acres outside of Sparta, Georgia. And so
Dang.
we've been meaning to go down there and try to do something with it and or um, um, try to sell it or maybe put something on there and then try to I don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. But
Somewhere to hang out down there.
yeah,
Is it all like untouched land? Is it just
it's
wild and
mostly just like a little bit of open field and woods, basically.
I gotcha.
And it's mostly undeveloped. So, like, I think she
Nice.
has like power hookups out there. That's about it.
Nice.
You know. So,
We got to get down here sometime.
yeah,
Come
I
by the
thought
shop.
about. How far is Sparta from Cleveland?
I don't know how far is Sparta from Cleveland. Yeah. No, Georgia. I have no idea. I'm having a phone a friend using a lifeline. I don't know. Um, we're up by Helen. We were in Helen today. Helen's a tourist town, a big time tourist town.
Okay.
It's the new Gatlinburg.
Okay.
So
I've
it's
been out to Gatlinburg before, and I had a lot
yeah,
of fun.
you're only about 3 hours north of us in Gatlinburg. So
Hmm.
so Sparta is down below Athens. It's not too far. We're
Okay.
gonna be down there in Watkinsville, which is down there between Sparta and Athens,
Hmm.
for the Georgia Bushcraft Fall Gathering.
When is that exactly?
November election weekend.
Oh, okay. So craziness going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I reserved my table yet either.
Hmm. I know
I
Jacob
haven't even
Peters
paid in on that.
planning on being down there. I've always wanted to go, but every time I kind of try to go, it's kind of like I always got too much things going on, and it was quite a strangeness for me to go to Texas Blade Show, but
Yeah,
but
yeah. That's
working two jobs and a farm is
I
kind of
hear you.
does a
The
lot of
farm is
that.
a whole ass job on its own.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So back to that little hawk sacks. I know we were kind of discussing, weren't we kind of concluding like 5 30 seconds of
Oh yeah,
easy
for sure.
to do? Yeah,
Yep.
I really have come to appreciate 5 30 seconds to people that wasn't here earlier. Um, 5 30 seconds, I think, is that great balance between 3/16
Yep.
and 1/8, and so like I find it's a great balance, and I think it works great for anything that's like a 3 to even up to a 6 inch blade.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it's good for stuff even bigger than that, heat treated
Yeah,
right. I just like, I don't know, if you're gonna make something bigger, big enough, if I ever have to chop with it, I don't want it to suck at chopping, so I'd just rather have the extra weight.
speaking of
Like
chop,
with the
want
Huntsman.
to try to do a mighty Huntsman, like a 10 inch version of this. Same.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah,
I have to get a bigger kiln. I was just talking with uh well regulated Reese.
yeah.
Um
I
was
have his
just talking today about the V44, and he sent me a picture of the Huntsman off of the
that he,
website. Yeah, and he took and clipped the point on it. I was like, man, it needs to be bigger. I don't
yeah.
know though. I mean, at the same time, it doesn't. I could do one just like that and just clip the point, leave the point alone, and just clip it, and it would fit
Honestly,
right in the
I'd be
same sheath.
totally game to like do like a few different blade styles. Like you use the same
Oh
handle
yeah.
and
Yep.
then just do like a few different blade styles. Like I was even thinking like a large sax version of this would be
Yeah, I
pretty.
remember we talked about that in the comments a while back.
Yeah, a large sax would be cool. I think one I'd like to see, kind of like I briefly mentioned, is like a mighty huntsman. So like same handle, but have like same blade shape, but have it like a 10 inch, just huge
Yep.
chopper, and just see what this thing
Yep.
can do. Especially with that wide blade, I think
Absolutely.
add a little bit of length, and it would just be kind of a monster chopper and hive.
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah, I got to get me a bigger kiln because my kiln is only 13 inches deep, and that's 12 and a half. So it's like
so. This
touching
would
the,
like
it's
barely
like
cushion.
touching, it's like this far from the element in the front, and it's almost touching the door. So it's barely, that's it. That's max 12 and a half inches. That's the biggest that I've heat treated in that. But it does it all right. It's maxed
Yeah,
out. But I mean, runs like the Huntsman can pay for a new kiln, for
yeah.
sure. So just gotta
Hopefully,
keep doing shit like that.
hopefully it helps you out for sure. I
Yeah.
I'm I have a strong sneaking suspicion that the Huntsman is going to do pretty good.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
they're
know I have had a lot of people ask me about it. Even when it was in prototype stage, I've had people ask me about it, and then um, I think there was one live stream I was showing the prototype to Jacob Peterson, and I had a guy offer me like $400 just for prototype. Yeah,
it did pretty good. Um, but and for it just being like this is the first one,
yeah,
it's really hard to get it just right on the first one anyway.
yeah. I
But
think it needed.
it definitely was a really good prototype because the micro changes that it needed were there and really accentuated with that knife, and to the point where like if just this right here was different, if this right here was different, then it would be this much better,
Yeah,
and there was just
it just
one or two
needed
little
a
places that
little
you
bit
could
more
point at.
refinement,
Yep,
basically.
that's it. It was a good prototype for sure. Yep.
Yeah,
It definitely needed those flat scales. That was the first thing that I started. That was the first thing that I complained about with the prototype when I took it out back and was batoning some wood with it. And sometimes I like the baton when they're laying flat, and if the grain is not straight, then it'll kind of twist.
yeah.
And every time I would hit something just a little crooked, that knife would twist in my hand.
Well, I
And
know. I mentioned this in a video that I posted yesterday, and I was kind of showing this compared to a lot of other very popular
yep, Yeah, I
knives
watched that one.
size range. And one of the things I kind of mentioned is, first of all, you're not going to make everybody happy. Like,
No,
no matter what you do,
no.
like I can make this perfectly contoured round and stuff, and people are still going to complain and say that they
Yep.
wished it was flat. And then you make it flat, and the same person's going to complain that they
Yep.
wished it was contoured. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No, you can't make everybody happy, but I think more importantly, if you nail the functionality, whether your preference is this or that, if you nail the functionality and you can't argue with it to the point where you just there's nothing that you can say other than a preference thing. If it as long as it's not like, hey man, this thing sucks. It absolutely just sucks because it doesn't do this or it keeps falling out of my hand or whatever. But you know, the flat side scales are 9.9 times out of 10 a preference thing.
yeah.
I want it to have this much, and I don't know. I've done a whole bunch of contouring in my day, and the flat scales, I just fatigue less with flat scales.
Well, I find that the flat scales, kind of like you said, they don't rotate as much. And one of the things that I'll do when I'm testing a knife is I just do like what I call the ninja death grip, and I just
Yeah.
grab, squeeze it as hard as I
Oh
can.
yeah.
And if it starts drawing hot spots when I'm squeezing,
Anywhere you're gonna
then,
know real quick.
then you'll know real quick. But this doesn't give me any hot
Yeah.
spots at all.
Yeah.
And kind of like something I've mentioned in my videos on this is you could do flat scales and have them very comfortable. You just like you could do contour scales and they could be just completely garbage.
Right.
That I can think of right off the bat is that oh, heavy set tactical, bless you, but
Right.
um heavy set tactical lended me that bussy, and that had like some weird contouring on
Yeah.
that was
Yep.
like I didn't know what the
Like
hell.
dog bone.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
I
weird.
I had no clue what the hell was going on. But then, another thing is I've had a super round contoured handle that rotated in my hand and, gave me a good nasty
Exactly.
little scar across my
Yep.
arm. So,
Yep.
you know, uh, so I've kind of come full circle to where, like, I think I almost just in general prefer the flat scales. Like, I think it
Yeah.
kind of really depends on the knife.
Yeah.
That
It really does. For me, if you're gonna chop with it at all, it, for me, it's gotta have flat sides.
yeah.
Because if it rotates the first time, I'm done. I don't want to chop with it. I just don't feel safe. Man, I've had enough chops like that slicing into your arm. You do that stuff growing up as a kid. You cut yourself. So I'm really cautious with what I hand my kids because they just kind of go at it, and I mean
Well,
they're pretty smart and they're safe with things, but still, I think about some of the things that I did, like almost losing fingers and some good cuts as a kid because I just went for it with pretty much everything, and you know all these little things that you gather in your mind of not to do's, especially when you're making knives and you've made so many and you've played with all of your. Yeah, that's another place that we're going wrong with a lot of these new makers is they're not playing with, they're not testing them, and 2 or 3 years ain't enough time. You need a lot of time of playing with just one thing. You need to play with one thing and really learn it inside out. I feel like before you can criticize it and move on to something else.
well,
You
I
know,
that kind of leeways off into a conversation that me and you had a couple of weeks ago, and how a lot of makers are chasing after the latest and greatest steel choice, for
yeah,
example.
same thing, just jumping around from one
And
thing to the next.
I've tried a few of these makers, and you have this supposed super steel that's better, but yet I'm trying a guy's 80 CRV or Nitro V or whatever that he just uses all the time, and it's out performing even said
Yeah,
super. Um, I think what's the point EDC kind of brought up something to the effect with you,
yeah,
and then of course. Then we kind of have questionable kind of like you've mentioned, everybody in the knife making industry, about 90% of them are all going to third party heat treatment.
Oh yeah.
And when all those said heat treatment places are all buddy buddy with the new latest greatest super steel companies too, then who's to say that they're not scaling back some of the steels
Yeah.
that performed for 30 years great, and now all of a
Right.
sudden it,
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm biased towards my really good loyal customers that buy constantly, you know, but I'd be a, a liar if I said that I didn't somewhat bias them. Maybe. I mean, subconsciously, you're gonna take care of the people that are loyal to you when you're doing business. If you don't, you're a dumbass. So, um, to what point, when we're talking like big money,
yeah.
to what point does it become favorable for somebody? You know, for some, we were talking about that whole. This is tinfoil hat stuff, I guess you could somebody could say, but if they're doing everyone's not, and I mean like the big companies at this recipe, right? Who's to say that I don't know those big companies or that made it? I don't, everything boils down to the same company nowadays, too. Everything is owned by like BlackRock, Vanguard, and shit like that. Even though all these, it's all just a funnel, And I don't know, how to go about saying it without
Well,
sounding like a
basically
complete fucking loon, but yeah, I mean,
basically the way I kind of take it is you can have your iPhone 13 that works perfectly fine, but they're going to send you out the update that makes your iPhone 13 run like crap. So now you go and buy the iPhone 15, so you get the latest and greatest new iPhone 15, when the
exactly,
13 would have just ran just fine if they didn't give you that
exactly,
update.
yeah,
I think kind of like what you were pointing out essentially is that some of these companies might be scaling back some of your more traditional steels so that those traditional steels don't perform like they used to
yeah,
try to
exactly,
promote the new like
yep,
Mac. And one of the things that, and right off the bat, I'm going to go on to a little caveat here. I like Magna Cut. I've tried Magna Cut quite a few times. I actually do like Magna Cut, so that's not me like trying to bash Magna Cut. But there's obviously like an insane level of marketing for it.
yeah, yeah,
When I went to Blade Show, Texas, there was just billboards everywhere, like Magna Cut, Magna Cut, Magna Cut, Magna Cut, kiss my
yeah,
ass, Magna Cut.
yeah.
It's oh my
Yeah,
god,
I haven't even tried it. I can't talk shit, and I don't talk shit about it.
yeah.
So I haven't tried it. But the thing is, like, I'm the last person to buy something that everybody's flocking to buy. The
Well,
last one because I'm like, hold up, what the hell's all the hype for? Like, I mean, is it really? Can it possibly be that much freaking better than the last one of these magnet? What was the last Magna Cut though? you
yeah.
know
Oh,
and
it's just,
just all of a sudden that steel's not worth a shit compared to Magna Cut just because Magna Cut exists.
well, it's kind of like I said on my knife steel rant video. Oh, I had a guy attacking me because I mentioned that like A2 was a decent steel, and on that video I kind of made mention. I was like, 10, 15 years ago, everybody was like really hyping up A2 steel
Yeah,
as the Mac Daddy steel to go to, and you know. Even 5, 10 years from now, who's to say that Magna Cut's going to be considered crap steel, and then it has to be like Kiss My Ass 2000, you
right,
know,
right,
yeah.
yeah. Nitro V never really had that big of a hype. um for a minute, they shook the market a little bit with it, but that's New Jersey Steel Barons thing, Nitro V.
Hmm.
And it's you know what happens with these big steels is they'll get flooded out, and then all of a sudden all these other makers, the smaller makers, will try them. what happens is they won't be able to meet the potential, or maybe they won't do it exactly right, the way it needs to be done, the heat treat, if it doesn't perform exactly the way that they expect it to, then it's all of a sudden just that much less valuable to them. What'll happen is 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 of these makers will all agree, because 3,000 people did it wrong, or they just didn't do it exactly the way it should have been done to really meet its potential. And a lot of makers nowadays will give things a really short run, a really short try. Oh, I tried 2 or 3 billets of this stuff, dude. I mean, I'm like 2 or 300 billets through Nitro V, you know,
Yeah.
and I do still think that there's micro improvements that I can make to it to get it even better. But it's pretty good the way it is, and I just don't put hands on enough knives out there, like other people's knives, other companies' knives, to really nitpick. So I just don't do a whole lot of nitpicking, because I can't really back it up, you know.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I know what I have for a standard, what a knife should be. After having made knives for so many years, I've tested a whole bunch of other knives, and I just know where it should be as a knife, as a performing tool. It should be able to do this, this, and this. If it doesn't do those things, it needs to be changed, or it just sucks. Or maybe I didn't do it right. Maybe I just need to give it a better chance. Either way, shut the hell up about it. Move on. Not bash it, or say that it's not superior. It's inferior to this or that, because it's just not. I don't know. Whatever.
well, one of the things that I've kind of made mention is I personally would rather have a knife that's made in a more common steel, we'll say, that I know the knife maker uses only that steel or
Yeah.
only that and a couple others and just really has honed that steel down. One of the things that I kind of equated to was, I was comparing a SE just 1095 to some of the newer cold steels and CPM3V. And I personally, and I like CPM3V. 3V is one of my favorite steels.
Yeah. 3D is pretty good.
But cold steels 3V, I think, is kind of lackluster.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not particularly
Yeah.
impressed. I was almost getting better performance out of the SE 1095 than I
Yeah.
was cold steel 3V. So I personally would rather take a knife made in a steel that the maker is completely confident in and has a lot of work with it versus
Okay. Well, let me just like throw this out there, just for anybody that might be listening. Can you compare 2 years, 2 good solid years worth of experience, everyone's experience since the development of the steel? Can you compare 2 or 3 good years of development on this steel versus how long has been 1095 been around?
100 years
Okay,
easily.
can we speak on that? How long has that been around? How many? Let me just say this: how long has Essie Randall been using 1095? And you're going to tell me that these people that have been using this new steel for a year have got it down better than this dude who's been doing it for 25, 40, 50 years? You know, it maybe the steel performs better. Not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying you can't say that it's not refined. You can't say that it's not good. It's not tough. It's not this. It's not that, because it's a fucking refined recipe. It's a world renowned recipe. You can't just delete world renowned recipes of
Or
things
a,
that are time tested. You can't argue time tested recipes.
yeah,
You can't. It
yeah.
still works. It's still around because it's still good.
Well, and kind of something that I've pointed out is, in all reality, if I handed a guy five of the same knife made in five different steels and threw them out in the woods and it wasn't labeled, most people wouldn't even be able to tell you the difference
No,
between.
no, no. If I'll tell you this: you couldn't tell the difference between 1095 and ADCR-V2 if you didn't know what they did when they start corroding, if you didn't know exactly how they acted when they start to dull. If you just had no idea, nobody that hasn't done a whole bunch of work with them could tell the difference.
Well, that was one of the things that really kind of caught me on, or made me notice something with the cold steels, is because I've used quite a bit of a 3V, but when I was using the cold steel 3V, I was like, man, this does not seem like it's the same like
Yeah,
steel I've been using with other knives that's in 3V. And I even recently was messing with the Architect 6.5 and was kind of messing with it side by side with a 3V cold steel. I was like, man, these do
yeah,
not perform the same at all. Like
yeah,
there's something, and who's to say too that a lot of companies, and I hate to make this accusation, but I'm thinking it's more so of a foreign imported company type of thing. Who's to say that they're just not labeling it something and hoping that most people are too dumb to even
right,
know the difference?
right, right. And there's not a lot of transparency with companies. There hasn't been for a long time, but it just keeps getting worse and worse. It gets that way in the custom side of the industry. The transparency is real low. It's really shady on that side of the fence.
Yeah, yeah.
Every tree you walk under is casting some big shade, man.
I say it,
And
but the knife industry, a lot of it is very cutthroat. I mean, I've seen just a little bit of it, just trying to get a design going. I've seen
yeah,
how some people can be kind of
yeah,
cutthroat, and
absolutely. Yeah, it is a very cutthroat industry. It is. And what's funny to me is um, people covet little things as if they matter so much, as if other companies haven't tried it already, if as if they're the only ones in the world that can do this particular process. It's all a marketing gimmick.
well,
It
that's what.
really is, because when you break down what it takes to make a damn knife, if you've been through the ringer 100 million times, there's not much variance to it. When you get a recipe down that works, then you know there's only so much that you can do to a steel. Once it's at its maximum potential, it's at its maximum potential. Like ADCR V2 is, it's a really basic steel, even though it's an alloy carbon. It's a basic steel. So you know, if I see makers out there that are going with the whole, you know, cryogenic treatment of ADCRV2 and this and that, and doing little things that just don't need to be done to this steel. Whether it helps or not is that's a different subject. Does it need to be done to the steel? Does it actually help? Well, I've done like everything that you can do with ADCRV2. I've tried water quenching, plate quenching, oil quenching, air quenching. I've tried I've tried cryo treatments. I've tried vacuum treatments. I've tried everything. And what it likes is just to be pulled right out of the oven, stuck in oil, and then thrown in the oven to temper. That's what it likes. It just wants to be basic. Basic steel needs a basic recipe, and
Well,
once you find something that works, why tweak it? Why try and make a gimmick out of it just to make your stuff sound like it's better when I mean,
well, it's hard to beat 1,000-year-old process, basically.
exactly. Yeah, it really is. But then when you start getting more technical with like all these CPM, the powder metal steels, you know, when you start getting more precise, then you can. It's going to take a little bit more precision to find the real basis of what the maximum performance of the steel can be.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of the hype with the Magna Cut is going to die. Not everybody that's using it is doing it right. Not everybody that's doing it right is putting it out there right. I just think that deleting all of the steels before Magna Cut just to promote MagnaCut is a fucking joke.
Well, I tend to agree, and like I said, I have a few knives in MagnaCut. I like MagnaCut. I think it's a little overhyped, and I've had a couple of MagnaCut knives that I don't think performed all that great, in all honesty, too.
Yeah.
So, um, speaking of steels, I know you're kind of mostly using ADCRV two and Nitro V. Has there been any steels that you have tried and haven't really liked for your process and your build?
Oh yeah, I've tried. I can't. I mean, I've tried every carbon steel known to man,
Yeah,
every forging steel known to man. I've tried a good piece of stainless, but not too much. Um, I've done a lot, almost every tool steel. Um, I was real big into. So when I worked for a premium knife supply, when I worked for Doug Metzger, I was grinding and heat treating all of their O1 blades, and I did thousands of them. And I just despise O1. I tried 100 different ways and just didn't like it. I just don't like it. You know,
yeah,
it's too much of this or too much of that. And I did. You know, it's really cheap too. It's a really cheap tool steel. And then we tried D2. D2 is probably my least favorite steel. And there's a whole lot of people out there that call me insane, but I'm not discrediting the qualities of the steel. It is a lot more stainless than carbon steels, but it's definitely not stainless. But the thing that I hate about D2 is as you're working it work hardens, and it work hardens really quick. So I mean, I don't know. I can't stand inconsistency when I'm working for it to just change on a dime, and that's what D2 does. But and then the only other steels that I've done as much, or not quite as much, but close to as much that I've done with ADCRV2 is 52100. And I've done a ton of 52100, and it's pretty dang good. But I just don't like it like ADCRV2. It doesn't sharpen the same.
I agree with that. My prototype is actually
Yeah,
52100. And originally, I wanted ADCRV2, but he didn't have at the time. He didn't have any ADCRV2 that thick and that long, and so he's like, "Hey, I got a slab of 52100." I was like,
yeah,
"Okay,
that'll do. It's
uh,
good stuff. It's
yeah."
good stuff.
I
Yeah,
just
I like it. It just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really perform the same way as ADCRV2. It doesn't. It definitely doesn't sharpen as easily as ADCRV2.
yeah, I find that it's hard to get a fine edge on
Yeah,
52.
yeah. I can't ever seem to get the right fine edge on 52100 without like really spending time and stropping it, getting it. You know, ADCRV2, man, you dull it out and you just. I use a ceramic rod. I've got them all over the place. A lot of them have nicks and chunks and stuff taken out of them, but I just use a ceramic rod and 2 or 3 licks on each side, and it'll bring it back to life to just
More
about
often,
hair shaving
I
sharp.
this on a leather strop and it's good to go.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
ADCRV2 for that reason.
Yep.
Another steel I like that is actually, at least I feel like it as a user. I don't know the like specific numbers and all that, but as far as just like use that I have that's kind of comparable to ADCRV2 is 8670.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
I find that I like 8670. I would say I like ADCRV2 and 8670 better than like 52100 generally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. 8670 is pretty good. I've used a good bit of it, and 1084. Um, 8670 is kind of touchy on heat treating.
Yeah.
It can get really brittle really quick. 80 CRV2 is, I mean, you can pull them right out of the oil after quenching them and drop them on the floor, and they won't break, they won't chip or shatter. And there's not a whole lot of steels you can do that with. And I mean, just pull it right out of quench and beat it with a hammer, and
Hmm.
it's really really rock solid. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I know I'm quite a fan of not only ADCRV2, but your ADCRV2. I think quite a fan
Yeah,
of.
it's been a over 10 years that I've been doing ADCRV2, and
Yeah, there's like a few
really just religiously doing it.
really has kind of caught my attention over. years, and ADCRV2 is one of them. One I'm starting to kind of lean on a little more, and it is kind of considered a super steel, is a crew wear. I've been trying a couple of crew wear blades, and I actually have been kind of finding that I like crew wear quite a bit. You know,
I haven't tried Crewware yet, but I did try the Crew Forge. I don't know if you remember seeing any Crew Forge out there.
no, I have not.
It's a carbon steel. It's like a hybrid. It's weird. I tried it, didn't like it.
Hmm.
I think that came from uh, Alpha, maybe. Crew Forge came from Alpha. It was their exclusive thing or something.
Yeah,
Um,
Alan with Primitive Bear 9 got me kind of caught on to crewware. He started kind of doing a lot of his smaller knives and
yeah,
crewware. So I started with that, and then I got that Bradford Guardian in crewware just to kind of try it, and I've actually been liking it quite a bit too. And it seems a little different than a lot of your super because, quite frankly, I've been just and it brings an edge right back to it, and it's
yeah.
fairly easy to take care of.
That's
So
nice. That's nice. I'm gonna have to try some.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to try some.
that's something else I found that kind of is a difference between a lot of your more, I guess, basic steels and some of your super steels, at least in my experience. And I could be wrong here, so this just as like a redneck user out in the woods kind of thing. But I find like when I'm using like ADC or V2 or something, I feel like there's several grades in between of like, okay, it's really sharp, it's pretty sharp, sharp, lesser sharp, and then it gets dull. I find
Yeah,
out your super steels and magna cut I find is like this is it's really sharp and it's dull. Like
yeah,
there's not really
yeah.
any
That's the problem that I've had with most of the CPM steels. Um, is there's not really much of an in between. And maybe I've not tested the right stuff, so I can't really speak to it too much. But I will say that, with a lot of the simple steels that I enjoy using, there is a lot of in between. They definitely go through their stages and I don't like my belt knife to be razor sharp. I like it to be a little dull because I get a little more aggressive with it and pushy with things, and I'll cut myself,
and beat the crap out of
and
it.
beat the crap out of it. I do, and scrape stuff off of metal and like paint and stuff. But yeah,
Okay,
I'm
feel you, man.
really mean to them. But you know that I like my pocket blade to be the razor because
Yeah,
I'm not pulling it out and using it for anything other than what I use that razor for. And if I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive with it, then I don't need it to be super ginormously lightning beam sharp. Although it's fun for a minute, you know. For like a carving knife though, like a Rambler or something, I really like them to be nice and sharp and have that. I like that 17-degree edge. That's another thing that drives me nuts about so many knives got like a 25, 30-degree edge on them, and holy shit, that's a damn chisel.
I will say, so I got one knife from Winkler, and I got it out of the box, and just seeing how thick the edge was on that Winkler, and I immediately just put it right back in the box, packaged it up, and sent it back. Like I hated that the moment I got it. It's like, man, this thing's a crowbar, but
There's just no, there's not a lot of versatility with a super thick edge. I don't know where people are getting off saying that they're superior to this or that or whatever. I like, what are you using your knife for? If I mean, is this the edge that you're telling me is the greatest in the world? Because I mean, in my experience, it sucks, and I use a knife constantly,
yeah,
constantly. And I don't know. I don't know how. It's not a preference thing for me. It's a this is just the way it should be or shouldn't be. After having tested so many things, that 17, 18 degree edge with the right heat treat, with the right behind the edge thickness, geometry.
Yeah. Well,
PBKG's probably watching and laughing.
An hour. So I like to try to kind of keep these right at about an hour and kind of wrap it up. So thank you for hopping on.
Absolutely.
Everybody that's watching, be sure to check out Very Good Knife Company on the 23rd, this coming
23rd,
Friday,
yep.
p.m. Eastern. This will be dropping. So
I've got a bunch of them in this stage right now.
awesome.
They're all glued up and ready to go to the grinder. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm eager to see the drop. I'm eager to see how they do. I have a feeling they're going to do pretty good.
We'll put them all out on the table just to get a nice, satisfying shot.
Awesome. But thank you, Jacob, for hopping
Absolutely,
on.
Bud. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you. You all have a good night.
Have a good one.